Hello and welcome to our first video in comparative government. We're going to talk about advanced democracies today. We're also going to cover the first topic dealing with Great Britain and the United Kingdom. All right, advanced democracies, these are democracies that have a very long history of democracy. All right, we're looking at established democracies when we tag them with this title of advanced democracy. Some examples: the United States, France, and Germany, and of course the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is the one that we're going to have out of the AP6 that counts for us. And there's two basic dimensions that we think about when we look at advanced democracies. We look at political and economic dimensions. We look at the political dimensions. We're talking about a country that is going to have regular, free, and fair elections, and they're going to include all of these other factors. They're going to have civil liberties. They're going to embrace the rule of law. The judiciary is going to be neutral. They're going to have an open and robust civil society, and the military is going to be controlled by civilian. These are all very important in tagging a country as an advanced democracy. Advanced democracies are liberal democracies. When you look at illiberal democracies, you're going to see them missing these other components. They're only generally going to have the voting part figured out. All right, advanced democracies have a high level of legitimacy, and this legitimacy revolves or is grounded in the idea that they've been doing it for a very long time. They also have a very large amount of political capital, and that's the trust between the citizens and the government in terms of the government doing the right thing, and the citizens believe that the government works for them. All advanced democracies are going to guarantee participation, competition, and liberty for all of their citizens. So you're going to see civil rights and civil liberties. Civil rights, things done by government; civil liberties that are protected. They're going to be done different ways. Every country is going to do it differently, but these are all definitely going to be a part of an advanced democracy. When we look at the economic side, we're looking at the idea of postmodernism. Advanced democracies have moved beyond their industrial revolutions in what's called modernism. Modernism is this view where industrialization is kind of the key to money and economic success and growth. Advanced democracies have moved beyond this idea of modernism, and they've moved into the postmodernism phase. Generally, this is going to be after industrialization. It places much more emphasis on the quality of life, the environment, healthcare, education. So it's going to be this, you don't almost want to say higher level, but it is that beyond, hey, let's make money and let's industrialize. All right. Most people who live in advanced democracies are going to work in the services sector of their economy. Talking about jobs in technology, healthcare, law, business, education. When you think about what your parents do and you think about what people do here in Northern Virginia, it's definitely a services-dominated employment fields here. If you take a look at the chart here, you'll see services, industry, and agriculture broken down by sector in each economy, and you'll see here all of these advanced democracies have high levels in terms of the service sector. More than 70% of their economy is going to come from services. Industry is going to be no more than 30%, and you'll see agriculture hovers there at a very low level. And this is true for advanced democracies. If we flip this and we looked at developing and less developed countries, you would see things change here where industry and agriculture are going to move up and the services are going to move down. And again, that's one of those differences between modernism and postmodernism. All right, so let's go ahead and move on here and take the next step. Let's talk about the United Kingdom, our advanced democracy that we're going to talk about our AP6. Great Britain has the longest democratic tradition in the world. It has many, many sources of authority and power that give it stability and legitimacy. And we're going to basically break this down into three different areas. We're going to look at their social compacts and constitutionalism. We're going to look at how they've evolved over time and their national political tradition. And then finally, we're going to look at political culture. All right, so one of the key things here is that Great Britain has developed gradually over time. Gradualism is kind of the focus here. It's taken a very long time for Britain to get where it is today. And again, it starts with a very strong traditional legitimacy in the monarchy moving forward in the family, in blood. And eventually, Parliament, that legislative body, is going to eclipse the power of the monarchy and this traditional legitimacy at the end of the 17th century. All right. They have no written constitution, but they have a long history of documents, common law, and custom that provide what's called the Constitution of the Crown. All right, the monarchy. Again, very long history. It evolves over time. You're going to see King John is going to give away the first powers there of the monarchy. And again, it's going to kind of snowball from there. It takes a long time, but it does build. They have no power. The monarchy has no real power today, but still plays a very symbolic role. Parliament, going back to the English Civil War and Charles II and the Glorious Revolution, where William and Mary are going to sign over a lot of the power of the monarchy and really establish that constitutional monarchy. That's the point where Parliament becomes, more important, definitely more important than the monarchy. The country is also going to be challenged by its industrial revolution. It's going to happen early on. This industrial revolution is going to spark Britain into becoming this huge world power. Okay, and becoming this world power and industrializing all of these forces at once are going to place a ton of pressure on the British political system, and you're going to see those changes really begin in the 19th century. Changes to the process, and seeing these people involved in this industrial revolution have much more of a role in government. All right, colonialism, another big important part of British history. Again, they're going to work and create this long worldwide empire. Again, the United States was part of that empire. You've heard the quote before, of course, the sun never sets on the British Empire, just to give you some scope of the size of these holdings. And again, they were able to do this with their very powerful military. Industrialization is going to be a driving force in this expansion. They need new markets to sell their goods, and they need raw materials. All right. The discovery and the use of these new lands are going to promote new wealth, new power, but also new responsibilities. And advances of the Industrial Revolution in transportation and communication are going to allow Britain to take on all of these new responsibilities. All right, as we move forward, as we get into the 20th and 21st century, as Great Britain is a world power, again, probably the most powerful nation in the world when we get to the turn of the century, you're going to see a steady decline. It begins to diminish in World War I, World War II. You're going to see the United States and Russia kind of rise to the top, with Great Britain having a very special place as an ally of the United States. You're going to see the economic crisis that will strike pretty much most of the developed world in the 1970s have big impact on Great Britain also. Britain is going to be really challenged, and they're even challenged today with this fight over it being a welfare state, which was created after World War II, taking care of people, taking care of their citizens from cradle to grave, and how that kind of counteracts with the more conservative views and a market economy. That's really going to come to a head in the 1970s with the oil crisis. You're going to have a lot of labor strikes and labor unrest, and this is where you're going to see Margaret Thatcher and this idea of Thatcherism emerge, and it's this more conservative view of government. That's going to continue, and you're going to see Thatcher and the Conservatives make some real footholds, particularly in the economy. You're going to see Tony Blair come along eventually in the 1990s, and he's going to try to chart kind of a path of both sides, of the Conservatives, the Thatcherites, and your ideas that socialism and the social welfare state still needs to be maintained. He's going to try to find that third way. And Britain is still struggling to find that perfect balance between a market economy and a welfare state. All right, that's something that they definitely are still working on. When we look at British political culture, there's a ton of nationalism in Britain. We just had a Summer Olympics there in Great Britain a few years ago, which was pretty impressive, a high amount of pride. But there also is insularity. They're an island nation. They're separate from the rest of Europe. And again, that's led to them being very cautious. The European Union, they're a member, but they're not totally invested in the European Union because, again, with the pound versus the euro. We'll talk more about that. Social class is the biggest cleavage in Great Britain. People who have not. We also have this idea of the noblesse oblige, which is the idea that the wealthy and the upper classes it's their duty to take care of the lower or lesser classes. And again, you can go back and look at feudal Britain to see how that even occurs today. It's really reflected in the idea that the British still have there's still strong support to maintain the welfare state, and that's subsidized education and health care, and basically taking care of citizens from cradle to grave. Multinationalism, it's interesting. There is immigration. We'll talk a little bit about this, and it's growing in Britain. But for a very long time, they've been pretty had a high level of homogeneity. And again, you look at this, United Kingdom's made up of a couple different countries. They do have a common language with different dialects, and you do have a couple different religions. But again, in comparison to a lot of the countries we study, they are um, pretty much the same. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me here for Advanced Democracies and the first section here on Great Britain. Please make sure to do the Google form that goes along with it.